So when we had slavery in this country, slavery did not conform to the natural law. And as a result, there was agitation, always. Abortion doesn't conform to the natural law. Why? Because we don't, all life should be respected. And so this agitation of having laws that are secular laws inconsistent with the natural law is something that we've dealt with in America from its very founding. But we have to recognize that there's a place for the articulation of the sacred law, or the natural law, or the universal law, and that they need to be in the public square, and they need to be involved in political discourse, because there are moral components to every single law we pass.
Dr. Martin Luther King, when he was thrown in the Birmingham jail,
I quoted it in my speech.
In 1963, on Good Friday, wrote his letter from the Birmingham jail, and in that he cited two Roman Catholic saints, St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, as saying that a just law is a law that comports with the natural law or the law of God, and an unjust law is one that doesn't. And the reason that the segregation laws of the South were unjust is because they violated the natural God-given law. Do you agree with Martin Luther King?
Absolutely. I quoted it in my speech. I mean, I used in fact, read the entire quote. And I believe that we have an obligation, and that's the call in my speech was for what Madison referred to as the perfect remedy. In essence, what freedom of conscience is all about, what you're talking about is all about, is how do we live with our differences? If you think about it, America is unique in the sense that we have people coming from very disparate backgrounds, very different points of view, and yet we have a equanimity here in America. We always figure out a way to sort of work things out in America. Why? Why does someone from Serbia and someone from Croatia, that if they lived in the Balkans would be at each other's throats, move next door to each other in Cleveland and are in the PTA together and get along? How does that work? Well, it works because America is different. It's Madison's perfect remedy, which is a vibrant, active, inclusive public square. Everybody's allowed in. People of faith, people of non-faith, and you can make your claims, you can argue your point, and then you can let the discourse decide. You don't have the elite, the planners, the smart people saying, no, this is how we're going to do things. And if the sacred law and the secular law don't match up, as the Supreme Court has done now on numerous occasions, whether it's marriage or abortion or a whole host of other issues, they've sort of pulled that discussion, that perfect remedy, and pulled the plug on it and said, no, we're going to impose our remedy, an imperfect one based upon the elites of our culture.
All right, let's talk in specific terms about how this natural God-given law that is at the foundation of our country plays into current, concrete issues. We asked House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, I think I mentioned it to you earlier, this past summer, whether she believed Jesus had a right to life from the moment of conception. Did Jesus have a right to life from the moment of conception?
Every person, every child conceived in the womb has a right to life from the moment of conception. Why? Because they are human, genetically human. At the moment of conception, they have the same genetic composition as you and I do from that moment on, and it's alive. So it is human by genetic, and it is alive. So it's a human life. So the question is not whether this is a human life. When Barack Obama was asked, is a child in the womb a human life? Oh, it's above my pay grade. Just about everything else in the world he's willing to do, to have the government do, but he can't answer that basic question, which is not a debatable issue at all. I don't think you'll find a biologist in the world who will say that is not a human life. The question is, and this is what Barack Obama didn't want to answer, is that human life a person under the Constitution? And Barack Obama says no. Well, if that person, human life, is not a person, then I find it almost remarkable for a black man to say, no, we are going to decide who are people and who are not people.
This is apropos, Senator, of language that's been in the Republican national platform since 1984. It was put there under President Ronald Reagan, who very much believed in it. There's been fight over this language virtually every convention since then. It says, faithful to the first guarantee of the Declaration of Independence, we assert the inherent dignity and sanctity of all human life and affirm that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. We support a human life amendment to the Constitution, and we endorse legislation to make clear that the 14th Amendment's protections apply to unborn children. We oppose using public revenues to promote or perform abortions and will not fund organizations which advocate it. We support the appointment of judges who respect traditional family values in the sanctity and dignity of innocent human life. First of all, do you agree with that plank?
I do, and we should keep it the same. And as you know, there's probably no one who went out and fought on the judges issue in the Senate more than I did. I fought and made it an important issue. But prior to my involvement in the Republican leadership, if you recall, the Priscilla Owen and Janice Rogers Brown and a whole bunch of others, and then eventually Supreme Court nominees. We as Republicans basically, we were out to lunch on judges. We didn't understand how important they were, and the fact that they did not have, respect for the Constitution. They did not have respect for how the Declaration and how our founding rights were inculcated into that Constitution. And I fought for those things, and I will continue to do so in the future.
The plank calls for legislation to make clear the 14th Amendment rights apply to the unborn child. You were talking about President Obama did not want to recognize the personhood of an unborn child. That specific language says that an unborn child is a person.
In fact, there are, as you know, there are movements now in the states, personhood movements in the states to try to get that very language included.
And you support that?
Yeah.
Right, now, some people would argue, some pragmatists would argue, that a child conceived through rape or incest, is that a person?
Yes.
So a child conceived through rape or incest has equal protection of the law.
A child is a child. I mean, to do violence to a child because of the way that baby was conceived. I understand. Look,
That child deserves the same protection from the state as a child conceived by a married couple.
It's about the child, okay? And I understand that there are obviously horrible consequences of dealing with the psychological and physical ramifications of rape and incest. But again, what we have to, and I did this from my debates on the floor of the Senate with partial birth abortion, which, as you know, I led the charge on for many years. And one of the most important aspects of that legislation was not that it was going to be a huge pro-life victory and that we were going to save millions of babies because of banning this procedure, which ultimately we did, but that debate focused America on something that for a long time they've been lied to about, which is that blob of tissue in the womb is a little baby. And with a partial birth abortion, when the baby is 20 weeks old, you can't miss the baby. I mean, the baby is being extracted from the womb alive. Arms, legs, toes, fingers, fingernails, as the movie Juno pointed out, and then is executed. So that moment that we had in the late 90s changed the debate in America. For the first time since Roe versus Wade, attitudes on abortion began to change. Young people who grew up during that era have a very different view of abortion as a result of that. Why? Because we are now, through sonograms, recognizing the humanity of the child in the womb. And it's not that we don't care about mothers. It's a tragic, horrible situation with rape and incest. But we need to deal with the mother and of all mothers, not just rape and incest, but of all mothers who are going through an unwanted pregnancy in a compassionate and caring way and a supportive way as possible. But we can't lose sight of the fact that there's another human being.
So you think we're on our way to winning the fight for life in the United States?
I don't think there's any question if you look at attitudes of young people.